All right, we're live. Hello, hello, hello. All right, so today, welcome everybody. We're doing a Q&A, and we're going to be going through questions that I've received from all of you about English. So I'm just going to get my list up, and we're going to go through these. And of course, as all of you join, I'm going to be taking questions from you as well, from the chat. So this is going to be fun. And we're going to do this rapid fire style. So we're going to try and go through this as quickly as possible. All right, here we go. Okay, we're going to get rid of this one. We're going to get rid of this one. And this one. And this one. Okay. First question is about vocal variety. So having differences in your tone so that you don't sound monotone. And what you need to know is that there are 4 things with changing up the tonal variety in your voice. The 4 variables, or the main 4 variables that you need to learn how to manipulate are going to be number 1, which is your volume. Number 2 is your speed. And number 3 is what's called cadence or rhythm. And lastly, it is your intonation. All right, so let me just scribble those out for you on the whiteboard. I'm going to share my screen and whiteboard. Here we go. All right, so to vary, and this variation in our voice is called tonality. And the factors that affect tonality, I said, were volume. That's how loudly you speak. So you could be speaking really loud, and then you could soften your voice. And you can kind of modulate that and play around with it just to make the way you sound more dynamic. And this can be especially useful when you're up on a stage and you're delivering a presentation of some sort. So the first one's volume. The next one is speed. The third one is cadence, or it could also be called tempo, or another word can be rhythm. And then lastly, we've got intonation, like so. All right, so let's go through these, and I'll give you some examples to demonstrate what they mean. The first one, volume, is when, hi Sonia, by the way, thank you for joining. Ajesh, great to see you here. Thank you for joining from Singapore. And Lolly, you always comment on my videos. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you here. And Learn Accounting Softwares, welcome to you as well. All right, so let me give you an example of volume. So actually, I just gave you an example of volume just a few minutes earlier. Hey, Ram, thank you for joining. The next one, we're going to look at intonation. So you might be familiar how when you ask a question, we would use this rising intonation at the end, right? We'd go, are you happy? Or do you want something to drink? Right? It's that rising intonation at the end where the pitch of our voice goes higher. And the other way that we can change that is when we drop our intonation down. And that is, we do that when we make a statement, when we say, or you could say, this is delicious. This food or this tea is delicious. We're using a downward inflection. So that's the change in intonation. Now, what about speed and cadence? And these two are very similarly related, but how to put it? They're related, but they're different variables. When we talk about speed, we're purely talking about how quickly we say a word. So let me use a really long word, and that way it's going to be easier to illustrate this. Rhinoceros, which is the animal, can be called a rhinoceros, where I can say it that quickly. I can say rhinoceros, or I can enunciate each syllable really slowly. I could say rhinoceros, right? Now, imagine if I was speaking in a sentence. If I was to say something like, how long do rhinoceroses live? I'm using a very slow cadence there, where I am pausing in between each word. Now, if I was to slow down my cadence even more, but still use a high speed, it would sound like this. How long do rhinoceroses live? I still said the word rhinoceros pretty quickly, but I was using a lot of pauses in between each word, and that's what we mean by cadence. And we can vary that as well to make our tonality change as we speak, make our speech more dynamic. So that's going to be the first question done. Those of you who are here in the chat, feel free to type away your questions in the chat. Anything related to English, I'll be happy to do my best to answer it. All right. Next question is going to be the word radical. Ooh, okay. What are some different ways we can use the word radical? This is such an interesting word. There's so many ways we can use this. So let me bring up my whiteboard, and I'm going to show you some different ways we can use the word radical. All right, so we're talking about the word radical. All right, first off, let's look at how we can use this as a noun. So we're talking about a radical. Or actually, before we look at the noun, let's look at the adjective. So because the most common form of this is an adjective. So as an adjective, this just means extra or extreme. Extreme. Or actually, extreme is probably the best way to describe it. So in the news, you might, when there's talk about terrorists, you might also hear them talk about radical ideologues or radical adherents of a certain political view or a certain religious view. They're not normal, they are radical, they are extreme, right? So that's the adjective form of the word. What about as a noun? We could also call those people, not peoples, but those people radicals. So a radical can mean a radical person, which just means an extreme person or a person who has very radical ideas, very extreme ideas and beliefs. Another way we can use the word radical is in science and chemistry. Now, for this, I'm not going to be able to explain it very well because I don't specialize in chemistry and I'm not very knowledgeable about it. But I do remember watching documentaries where you'll hear talk about what are called free radicals. And this is, I think, I'm not 100% sure, so I'm going to put a little asterisk here because I might be wrong. It's a type of particle, and that's about all I know in terms of chemistry. So these are some different ways we can use the word radical. All right, and of course, if we want to use the word radical as an adverb, instead of saying radical, so this is the adjective form, as an adverb, the word would become radically. So when we say that something is radically different, it means it's extremely different. It's very different to another thing. So we could say, for example, apples and oranges are radically different fruits. Okay, there we go. Sonia, thank you for the question. Could you please pronounce these words? Sure. So village, college, knowledge, genre, measure, leisure. Interesting. You picked words that sound very similar or that rhyme almost. Village, college, knowledge. They all rhyme. The last syllable on all three of these words is pronounced the same. Genre, it's a tricky word because it's originally from French, and we're basically trying to copy that French pronunciation. I think the French, it wouldn't even be jaw, it would be genre, or something like that. It'd be a lot more nasal. Measure, leisure. Yeah, these words, although they're spelt differently, they are pronounced the same, or the last syllable is pronounced the same. They rhyme. MSMP, how do you learn collocations? Great question. So collocations just means like a set of words that commonly go together. So a simple example might be to take a walk, right? So that's a collocation. We don't say to do a walk. We don't say to make a walk. It's to take a walk, right? Or we might even say to go for a walk. And because that's a collocation, that's a set or an expression where it is pronounced, or not as pronounced, it is said together like that as a set. That's how it commonly occurs. So the way you'd learn that is where you would take that word, make sure that it's being used in context, and you would internalize it by practicing it in context. That's a really short explanation. I've got a much more detailed explanation of that on my website. So if you head over to my website, fluentlikeaboss.com, fluentlikeaboss.com, I've got a much longer video explaining something I call RRC, and that's the best way to internalize collocations. So RRC stands for real, relevant, and contextual. And you're going to find more about this on my website, fluentlikeaboss.com. And there we go. All right. Lolly, yes, there we go. Lolly, I believe, Lolly, could you correct me if I'm wrong? You are actually a French speaker, right? As in French is your first language? If that is, then that's really cool. So we've actually got a French speaker here to verify that for you. And yes, the word genre is originally from French, and the pronunciation in French is not the way I'm pronouncing it. It's different. I need to tenses details. So Pratik says, I need to tenses details, how to learn easy way. So what's an easy way to learn tenses? Is that your question, Pratik? Again, my answer to that is, when it comes to anything that's grammar related, the best way to learn it is to make your learning real, relevant, contextual, RRC. And I've got a much more detailed video about that you can check out at my website, fluentlikeaboss.com. Okay, so make sure you go have a look at that when you get the chance. Whoops, here we go. Sunas Ali, good question. What accent am I speaking? Is it American or British? It's probably neither. My accent is like a mix of so many different influences, but probably the biggest influence was TV shows that I was watching as a kid, and most of them were actually American. So I guess I wouldn't say I don't actually have an American accent, but it's closer to an American accent than it is a British accent. Jacob Samro, thank you for the question, Sunas. Great question. And Jacob Samro asks, do I use Grammarly? No, I don't. I don't use Grammarly, because Grammarly is a pretty recent development. Like, I actually remember when Grammarly started, they were mainly promoting themselves without any product whatsoever. It was just a social media brand where they were just making these really funny posts and memes about grammar, about funny and interesting things about grammar. And I remember I was actually following them. I used to love their posts. I used to share all of their posts. And this was for a good probably 1 or 2 years that they were just a social media brand. And then all of a sudden they came out with this app, or not an app, but like an online software solution to check your grammar and correct your grammar in real time. And I thought, wow, that's so cool. You know, that's impressive. So I thought that was brilliant in terms of marketing. For the first 1 year, they didn't mention any product. They weren't selling anything. They were just, generating interest and awareness of their brand. And then after that, they dropped this product, which makes some amazing promises. I've never actually tried it, but I know a few teachers who actually do use Grammarly, and they love it. They think it's such a powerful software solution to improve your writing. And I have some friends as well who are professional writers, like they write short stories and things like that. They use Grammarly as well, and they find it really useful. So yeah, for anybody who's like, say, learning English and you're trying to improve your grammar, using Grammarly could be a great tool, because as you're typing out anything, it's going to check your grammar in real time and give you feedback, and that's so much more affordable than getting your writing checked by a teacher or using the services of a professional proofreader even. But of course, if you do use a professional proofreader, you're going to have a much more personal, probably a better quality level of feedback from someone like that. Great question. Thank you for the question. Why did I miss your question? Mike Lamb, did I miss your question? I didn't miss your question. I actually answered it. You missed the question. I answered it right at the beginning of this session. So, Mike Lamb, just watch the recording. The recording of this is going to go up on YouTube when we're done. So if you watch the recording, your question is going to be like one of the first things that I talk about. Oh, and probably to add to that, one way to improve your intonation and your tonality is you definitely got to practice it. It's not easy to do by yourself. You can try like listening to people who speak eloquently, people who you want to sound like, and you can try to imitate them and do shadowing. But if for a lot of learners, where they get stuck is they're not able to even hear the difference between the way they speak and what they're hearing. Like to them, it sounds the same. They're not able to pick those differences. In which case, it really helps to have the feedback of someone else who's listening to you, who's got a clearer perspective of that. So you can enroll for online coaching programs to develop your tonality, and there are people who just specialize in that. I also have an offering. I do have a program to help you with that. It's called Accent Like a Boss. You can find out more about it at accentlikeaboss.com. And what I do in that course is I teach everything you need to know about pronunciation and accent. So in English, there are 44 different sounds in the language. There are 20 vowel sounds and 24 consonant sounds. So in Accent Like a Boss, we go through every single one of those sounds, and I break down and explain exactly how you're supposed to move all these muscles in your face and coordinate them to produce these sounds accurately and clearly. And after we do that, at the end of the course, we also have this entire series, 3 full lessons, just to develop your tonality, with exercises and examples that you can use to practice and train. In addition to that, I don't just give you a bunch of recorded lessons and ask you to do it yourself. I actually personally get on a Zoom call with you one-to-one, and I'll listen to you speak, and I'm going to give you personalized feedback specific for the areas that you need to work on. So this is like a complete program. It's like everything you need to know to get. And my promise is, at the end of the whole program, 90 days, you will have the best accent and pronunciation you have ever had, meaning the clearest and the most eloquent accent and pronunciation you have ever had. In fact, like tonight, right after this live stream, I've actually got a Zoom call scheduled with one of my students enrolled in the program. So definitely check it out, accentlikeaboss.com. Hey, Terry, thank you, man. I appreciate the feedback. That means a lot to me. Thank you, Terry. Terry says, of all the languages I speak, which one do I feel was the most difficult to learn? I would say probably French. I actually took French as a subject. It's interesting because you say French as well, Terry. I took French as a subject when I was in school. That was I think it was my GCSEs. And I ended up getting, I think it was a C or something. It was either a B or a C for French. And I was like, I only got that grade because I memorized what I was supposed to say for the speaking portion of the test. And I think there were 2 tests. There was a higher level one and an easier one. And my teacher said that if I take the lower level one, I have a better chance of getting a higher grade. So I ended up doing that. And that's actually how I got that grade. I don't remember any of it. I can't communicate in French at all. I can probably recognize a few words here or there. I could probably, there's one thing I know how to say, and that is, j'aime jouer au basket or something like that, which means I like to play basketball. That was part of my memorized speech for my test, my end of, I think it was my end of year exam for the subject. But beyond that, I can't say anything else. I would like to pick it up again at some point, though. Thank you for the question, Terry. Appreciate you being here and joining us. So Burak says, my vocabulary is not bad, but when it comes to, oh, I can actually, this is so cool. I can click these comments and show them on the screen. I didn't know I could do that. My vocabulary is not bad, but when it comes to speaking English, I don't remember, and I'm thinking too much. What should I do, David? Hey, Burak, what you're describing, first thing I'll tell you is this, you're not the only one. What you're describing is so normal, it's so common, and it's a part of learning languages. We all go through it. I still go through it with some of the languages that I speak. And in fact, I still go through it with some languages that I'm supposed to be fluent in because I haven't used them for many years. And so I start to get a bit rusty. So I completely understand how you feel. What's really helped with me, Burak, is definitely making sure that I'm using the language in a way that's real, relevant, contextual. I mean, I sound like a broken record saying this, but the reason why I'm constantly talking about this is I feel like for a lot of the students that I work with and the students that I teach, the one thing that they're always lacking is that in their learning. I mean, if you think about how we learn our first languages, it usually goes in this order. We start with listening, then speaking, then reading, and then writing, right? In that order. We learn to listen and understand first, then we learn to speak, and then it's only when we get a little bit older, we start going to school and we learn to read and write. And for our new languages, for English, for a lot of you who are learning English, it's the other way around. Now, that's not necessarily bad, but I think where the standard English curriculums let us down, or language curriculums let us down, is that we spend so much time only, looking at the grammar rules, only studying and writing, and we never actually get out of that and experience what it's like to use the language to express ourselves. And I think that's really what's missing in a lot of English curriculums. It's not to say that these English curriculums are useless and that we should abandon them completely. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that this is an area that they're lacking. So for us as learners, we need to continue using whatever benefit, continue using and taking advantage of whatever benefits we get from our English study, but we need to definitely spend a lot more time than what we're doing right now with using the language to communicate. And if you want to know exactly how, there's so many different options we have nowadays with the internet, resources and tools on the internet that we can use. You don't need to live in a native English speaking country. You don't need to get on a plane and move. You don't need to have native English speakers around you. There's so many other things and options you have. It's all just a matter of how committed you are and willing to do the work and put in the time. So Burak, I would recommend that you too, have a look at the video I've made explaining this in a little bit more detail on fluentlikeaboss.com. That's my website, fluentlikeaboss.com. So cool. Thank you for the question, Burak. Appreciate it. Next question. Perfect English learning platform. Hey, thank you for the 12-day class. It really helped me a lot. Hey, thank you so much for the feedback. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And thank you for enrolling in it and completing it. Kirti saying, say hello in Tamil. Nobody says hello in Tamil. I mean, people say vanakkam, but vanakkam is something that you rarely hear. You only hear it on the news. Nobody actually says that in day-to-day spoken Tamil. But there you know. Now, at least now you know that I speak Tamil. Thank you for the question, Kirti. Sonia, thank you for that. That's very kind of you. How and when do we use the word stress? How and when do we use the word stress? That's how and when to use word stress? Okay, good question, Harshan. How and when to use word stress? The interesting thing about word stress is there aren't any fixed rules. I mean, there's some general patterns you might see, but there aren't fixed rules. Every word has its own rules on which part of it you're supposed to stress. So, and the confusing thing for a lot of learners is there are all these words which have the same spelling, and they're very similar in meaning, but they're different. They have different stress points depending on how you use it. So for a really common example that I've probably talked about before on this channel is complex and complex. All right. And they're both spelt exactly the same. The first one has the stress here on the second syllable, complex. And this means something like difficult or complicated, right? That's what it means. Then the other words, complex. And then the other word, complex, where we stress the first syllable. This is like, it's like having an insecurity, a sense of insecurity about yourself. So for example, when we say that somebody has an image complex, that means they feel insecure about their appearance. Another meaning of the word complex could be like a group of buildings. And this is a completely different, unrelated to the insecurity meaning. It just means group of buildings, something like that. It would be a complex, right? So you might have heard the expression shopping complex, for example. All right. So how you learn what the correct word stress is number one, you need to be listen for it and pick out where the stress is. Number two, use a dictionary, because dictionaries will always tell you which part of the word the stress is in. And in fact, what you can do now is even go on Google. If you just search the pronunciation of a word on Google, it will play, like there'll be this little animated face that pronounces the word for you, and it shows you how you're supposed to move your mouth. And then I think it also shows you which part of the word you're supposed to stress. So definitely use that, and that's going to help you with getting your word stress right. Thank you for the question, Harshan. I appreciate it. Next question, Sunas. Sunas says, I have an Indian accent. I want to learn some other native English accent. Should I focus only on one accent if I'm following the British and American English? Will I be confused while speaking? Perhaps. If you want to learn a particular accent, meaning learn how to speak in a particular accent, then I would recommend starting with one and really just focusing on that. And that's going to definitely be easier, because an accent, or learning an accent, which is really just a pattern of pronunciation, is all about muscle movement. It's a motor skill, just like playing a sport or throwing a ball or swinging a bat is. And what you've got to learn is to move your muscles in a particular way, and you've got to program them and basically develop muscle memory so that it becomes automatic and subconscious. And with different accents, because you're moving your muscles in completely different ways, it can be challenging, especially when they're so similar and you're making these subtle changes. So I would say if you're learning how to speak in a particular accent and that's one of your goals, then yeah, focus on one. Pick one and just focus on that to begin with. If you want to learn another one later on just for the fun of it, then go for it. I will add one thing, and I need to say this because it's something that's really close to my heart, something really important to me. I don't believe that it is right for people to be discriminated or looked down upon for having a certain accent. There's nothing wrong with having an Indian accent, Sunas. I don't believe there's anything wrong with it. And I actually made a video just a few weeks back about the stand-up comedian Vir Das. He's Indian, he has an Indian accent, and he travels all over the world. He's a world-class communicator, presenter, public speaker. So you don't need to have like an American or British accent in order to be an effective communicator. But there are definitely some aspects of certain accents which can make it difficult for people to understand you. And if you do have, if there are aspects of your accent that are really thick and it makes it hard for you to communicate, then it might be worth just kind of, how do I put it, neutralizing those aspects of the accent. So I would say your goal as a language learner should be to communicate better, not necessarily to get a certain accent. But if your personal goal, if you on your own, not because of discrimination, not because you think that a certain accent is superior, like if it's intrinsically superior, if you know what I mean, if you, as for your own personal satisfaction, just want to learn an accent, go for it. Thank you for the question, Sunas. Terry, I dream of English with Terry, by the way. English with Terry, could I ask you something as well? Because you were asking me a few questions. I think I've earned the right to ask you a question. Are you a YouTube creator as well? I don't know if I'm actually subscribed to you or if I've seen your content, but yeah, if you actually are a YouTube content creator, is your channel name also English with Terry? If it is, I'd love to just plug your channel, man. But your question is, this might sound crazy, but I dream of a revolution in English spelling. My dream would be to completely fix English spelling to make it phonetic. Is it an impossible dream? I don't know if it's impossible, but it definitely seems and feels like there are parts of the world or parts of our lives where that's already begun to take place. Namely on the internet. So if you go on the internet and you go just scroll through the comments of almost any controversial topic or controversial video, you're going to find plenty of people who only spell phonetically, which is pretty funny. As a teacher, it kind of does get on my nerves just a little bit, to be honest. But like, how when people spell could've, with all those words with the apostrophe VE, and when they spell it with an OF instead, that really does get on my nerves. But I think I remember I've had discussions with people on Quora where I've actually said, I actually think English should be phonetic. It would make it so much easier for learners. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Luke, English Addict, why you should have, it would have been huge advantage of members of your family. I'm not sure what that's in reference to, but thank you for participating in the discussion. It might be something else that I missed in the comments. I'd love to introduce written accents to English spelling. Complex, yeah, that would be so cool. I mean, if we had that, just like they do in French, to have those written accents, that would be so much easier for learners, like Superman and Kryptonite to your friends. I can understand that. Sonia says, I think most people who are putting questions in the chat box are YouTubers. Yeah, perhaps, I guess. I mean, even if you're not creating content on YouTube, I guess you could still be called a YouTuber if you're just part of the YouTube community. Oh, there we go. English with Terry has a channel. Boom, there you go. So all of you who are watching, head over to English with Terry's YouTube channel as well. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to quickly open up his channel and show you guys what it looks like, so that you guys actually get a look. So English with Terry. Let's look that up. There we go. Boom. He's got tons of content here. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Look at this. Okay, I need to share my screen with you guys. Have a look at this. I'm just gonna share my whole screen. Boom, this is English with Terry's channel, and look at that. Got all the colors of the rainbow. And wow, Terry, you can really see you've gone through a journey, you've gone through quite a journey when it comes to like just the theme and look and feel of your brand. And you can see how that's like really evolved over the time that you've been on YouTube as a creator. Kind of started off with like the orange theme, then it became something like pretty cocky military sort of zombie apocalypse sort of sort of colors. Then a little bit more digital with the green, with the bright green. That's really cool. It's cool to see you go through that evolution. And I'm loving this new look that you have right now, where it's like it's almost this sort of font and typography you'd see with like fitness channels, fitness and exercise channels, but super cool. You got tons of useful content here. So people, you can't complain that you don't have enough content, free content to learn from when you've got plenty of cool YouTube channels just like this. There you go. English with Terry, by the way, that's the name of the channel that we just looked at. Go and have a look. Hey, David, can you speak English in an Indian accent? The Conqueror, yes, I can. I'm not going to do it right now, just because, you know, a lot of people can be super sensitive about it. And so I'm not going to do it right now. But if we ever sit down and have a coffee where I know who, you know, when I know who's actually at the table and listening to it, who's part of the conversation, I might do that, you know. So there we go. All right, everyone, I'm going to get going and get ready for my lesson. I've got a lesson lined up for like 20 minutes from now. So hey, I want to say thank you all so much for joining me live like this. I really do appreciate you all taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and hang out with me like this for the live and for participating, asking all of your questions. Wonderful. I wouldn't have been able to do this without you. So I'm going to be doing more of these. I hope. I'll be leaving my day job at the end of this month, so I'm going to have a lot more time. Basically, from April onwards, I'm going to be doing full-time freelance work, consulting, teaching, online courses, marketing, and more YouTube. Actually, I've actually got. I'll be doing this channel, Speak Like David. I've revived one of my old channels, the first channel I actually started off with, which is going to be all about cars, which is something that I'm really passionate about. And I'll be starting a new channel, which is called Wizard of Boss. And that's going to be all for my consulting and marketing business. I actually do some consulting with relation to online marketing for a few clients. And I'm going to be looking to scale that through with a social media page and all of that. And then the other one is just going to be more about like coffee and tea and like cakes and things like that, because I'm a bit of a sweet tooth. So kind of with all these different aspects of me and my personality, my likes and my passions, I would like to share that with all of you guys. And I'm doing that with these different channels and projects. So have a look out for that, or keep a lookout for that. And I look forward to connecting with you guys then. Take care. Have a wonderful week. Talk to you guys soon.